Hello there everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be checking out the all-new Transformers Takara Tomy more exclusive 2021 reissue of Soundblaster based on his Netflix appearance, this time with the Mercenary deco. Now this guy has actually taken quite a considerable amount of time to become released. I do believe he's been delayed by quite a few months, but here at long last we have the figure and I'm really excited to be able to take a look at him for you. Now for those who managed to pick up, I believe it was the Walmart 35th anniversary exclusive version of Soundblaster, you guys know exactly what to expect with this figure. It is at the end of the day the exact same figure, just with a few differences as far as the paint deco is concerned. I will be honest and say that for a Takara Tomy more exclusive product, I do find the packaging to be incredibly lazy. It is merely just that 35th anniversary, and considering this is being released 2 years after this subline did indeed hit the shelves, it would have been nice to have gotten a slightly different box art. But you can see here on the side, we've got a really awesome image there of Soundblaster, this time with the Decepticon insignia, whereas it should actually be the Mercenary insignia. And as we spin around here to the back, Takara have merely just reused some of those initial product shots. So without further ado, let's crack this Netflix inspired Soundblaster open and see what awaits us inside. And here we have Soundblaster cracked open and out of the packaging. And for those of you in the States, you probably won't be all that interested in this figure, as I do believe this guy is in fact actually shelf warming in some parts of the United States. But here in the UK, I know for a fact that when the pre-order was announced for this Takara Tomy reissue, the entire Transformers fan base literally jumped on those pre-orders, and I believe they sold out within literally less than 24 hours, as this guy never hit UK shores and the original version is very difficult to obtain. So I certainly am glad to finally have one of these, despite me actually managing to pick up the original version a few months back. I did actually post a review, so please feel free to check out that video if you haven't done so already. But we're going to be taking a look here at the Takara Tomy deco here today, and for the most part the figure is exactly the same. Personally, I wish that Takara had used the Netflix Soundwave mold, as in the actual show I believe he has a slightly more slimmer compartment in order to match Soundwave, rather than this double one which can actually holster 2 cassettes, which we'll showcase later on in the video. And I also would have loved for them to have actually packed in perhaps Buzzsaw, just some of those cassette bots that we haven't as of yet gotten from the Generation Select line. But you can see that as far as the detail is concerned, the head sculpt looks fantastic. This guy has got to have the best light piping out of the entire War for Cybertron trilogy so far. He looks incredible. The paintwork looks exceptional. We still have got that siege battle damage applied to the arms and to the lower section of the legs, but I actually don't think it looks too bad at all. And if my memory serves me correctly, this has actually been applied a lot better than that original Walmart exclusive version. Of course, the main difference this time round is now that we have less battle damage actually applied to the cassette deck, and we also now have the Mercenary faction, as in the Netflix series Soundwave is a mercenary and it's not just a rebuilt version of Soundwave and Blaster. So they did give him a slightly different backstory in the show. I do believe that he is a Shockwave clone reject, which is really an interesting concept, and I am hoping to see this character actually make an appearance in the third and final chapter, that being Kingdom. But you can see the detail across the board is really nice. Nice cassette player buttons here which have all been painted really nicely. All of the paint apps here for the legs have turned out exceptionally well, and as we spin around here to the back, you can also see some really nice looking detail. I absolutely love the black and red colour motif that Soundblaster here sports. It looks incredible, and the plastic that Takara Tomy and Hasbro have used really does pop, especially here for the cassette deck. It can of course open in the exact same way, so you simply just push this button and you can see it will deploy, revealing some really nice internal detailing here, very authentic to what you would expect from a real cassette player. It is just a shame that this guy does transform into a really unusual looking Cybertronian aircraft, and he does come with the exact same accessories, that being this concussion blaster here for the shoulder, as well as this blaster here in the hand. And we also do get that very random grey blaster, which even to this date I have no idea as to why they continue to package this with Soundblaster and of course Soundwave. Just to very quickly demonstrate his compatibility with some of the Soundwave minions, you simply just want to insert them in here. I won't push them in all of the way, as it can be rather difficult to actually prise them out, but there is Laserbeak stored in there. And we'll just take Ravage and store him in here as well. And with a bit of luck, this should actually close. You can see that he can in fact hold 2 cassette tapes, which is really awesome. And I really love that feature about Soundblaster. But definitely a really cool looking figure. The articulation is exactly the same, so we'll get him transformed up into that Cybertronian spacecraft mode, and then of course we shall wrap up this review. But before we actually do proceed with transformation, here for a very quick comparison, we've got the Netflix Soundblaster compared next to the Netflix Soundwave. And to be honest, I do slightly retract my earlier statement in saying that I wish this Soundblaster was essentially just a repaint of the Netflix Soundwave, as I do actually quite like having these 2 different molds on the shelf. It gives that original Siege Soundwave a purpose on display, and we also do get the Netflix version, which transforms into a completely different design. But despite these two figures literally having completely different alternate modes, the robot modes do look very, very similar. So really cool engineering on Takara Tomy and Hasbro's part, and I do think they look fantastic with one another. Something else which I do find to be slightly lazy is that Takara have merely just packaged in, once again, that same 35th anniversary Walmart exclusive instruction manual. So we've got the Decepticon insignia, we have all of the battle damage, which is such a shame. I wish that maybe they could have given us some different art just to make this look slightly more visually appealing than just simply a really lazy reissue. I will be very quickly skimming over the conversion for this, as mentioned, I have already previously showcased it in a detailed review that I did of the original Walmart Soundblaster a few months back, and of course it is exactly the same to Siege Soundwave. So without further ado,
Soundblaster Operation Transform.
And voila, just like that, here we've got Soundblaster fully transformed up into that Cybertronian airbase ship type of thing. Honestly, I still, even to this day, don't have a clue as to what this is supposed to be, but I will be honest and say the detailing is really, really nice. And of course, if you have some of those Micromasters and Battle Masters, I think they will be more to scale with this than some of the more regular mainline figures. You can see some exceptional looking battle damage applied here to the front. This really does look leaps and bounds better than some of the previous battle damage, even being better than the most recent Kingdom Galvatron battle damage that we got. You can see really awesome detailing here at the top. We've got the red transparent cockpit, and I just think the colors work so well. The red, the blacks, the subtle bursts of gold and silver just all look fantastic. They've done such an exceptional job as far as the colorization is concerned. Of course, you could bring in all of the accessories and port them here onto the top, much like you could do with the original version. I do wish I could bring the original version out for a comparison, but I've completely misplaced it. I'm not entirely sure whether or not I put it into storage, but it is exactly the same as this guy, minus some different details here for, of course, this cassette deck. But definitely quite an unusual looking Cybertronian craft for those who like slightly more wackier alt modes for their characters. I think that you'll still really like this, but to me, I will definitely be keeping Soundblaster in his robot mode. As far as mold degradation is concerned, the only area which I've found to be slightly looser is the connection here for the legs. I do feel a little bit of pressure actually pushing these apart, so they definitely don't stay tabbed in as well. But if you did watch my original Soundblaster review, you will all know that I had a very loose waist joint, whereas here with this reissue, that appears to be fixed, and all of the joints in robot mode do appear to be very tight, like this is in fact the first production run, so that definitely is really nice to see. So some final thoughts here for the 2021 Transformers Generation Takara Tomy more exclusive Soundblaster reissue. I actually really like this figure. As mentioned throughout this review, this guy more or less is exactly the same to the original Walmart version that we got, a figure that I have only just recently actually acquired. I believe I got it roughly 2 months ago, but if I hadn't been lucky and found one on eBay, this guy really would have been my best bet of getting this figure in the collection, as here at least in the UK, he is super hard to get a hold of. So for those who are in the UK that still have the opportunity to actually purchase this guy, I would recommend that you go for it sooner rather than later, as no doubt this guy is going to skyrocket on the aftermarket. For those of you in the States, I do also believe that the original Walmart version is in fact shelf warming, and honestly there aren't really that many differences between this version and that figure, so unless you are a die-hard completionist and you really want the most accurate version of Soundblaster in your collection to represent what we got in the Netflix series, then I think that this guy would be a nice addition to the collection, as of course we now have the Mercenary insignia. But as far as mold is concerned, just be aware that you are not getting nothing new with this figure at all. It is exactly the same. I do know that there are some that wish that perhaps we could have gotten some of those final cassettes that we haven't as of yet seen in the Gen Select line, and I personally would have loved to have seen that. It would have given collectors who perhaps had purchased the first version to double dip in order to get some of those final cassettes, and it really would have made this the complete package, as of course we are still missing, I believe, Buzzsaw, and there may also be one more. And in the actual Netflix series, Soundblaster did actually have minions which really did resemble Laserbeak, so it would have been cool to have gotten a Laserbeak packed in with this in a slightly different colour variation. But I personally really like this. I think this is by far one of the best repaints that we've seen from the War for Cybertron line so far. The red and the black complement the sculpt so nicely, and it really is a very awesome looking figure, and a really good mould as well. Despite it not being as good as that Netflix version due to it having a very unusual looking alt mode, I do still think that it is a nice figure to add to the collection, as of course it is slightly different to that Netflix Soundwave, and it just gets that Siege Soundwave into the collection if you don't perhaps want that figure on display with your Netflix version. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to know as to whether or not you guys have in fact actually pre-ordered this Takara Tomy reissue, and if you have, are you excited for it, or are you in fact going to be selling it on due to there not being that many differences? I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.